I trusted her with my heart for 3 years, believed she was the one I would grow old with. Jessica was my everything, and I had just picked out a beautiful diamond ring. I was ready to propose, planning our forever together. Then that strange text notification lit up her phone while she was in the shower. My world started to crack. She wasn't in Boston for work like she claimed. She was in Miami with her ex, while I was at home planning our engagement. Let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button before I tell you how I discovered the betrayal that changed everything. I met Jessica at an art gallery opening in Manhattan 3 years ago. I remember that night vividly, the way she stood admiring a modern sculpture with genuine curiosity in her eyes. I was there with a friend who knew the artist, but from the moment I spotted Jessica, the artwork became secondary. "What do you think it represents?" I asked, stepping beside her. She turned, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear, and gave me a smile that made my heart skip. Freedom from conventional thought, maybe, or just an excuse to weld random metal pieces together and call it art. Her honesty and humor caught me off guard. We laughed, introduced ourselves, and spent the rest of the evening talking in the corner of the gallery, oblivious to everything around us. I was a software engineer at a growing tech company, and Jessica worked in marketing for a major cosmetics brand. We exchanged numbers, and I called her the very next day. Our first date was at a small coffee shop in the West Village. I arrived early, nervous and excited, watching the door until she walked in wearing a yellow sundress that made her look like sunshine personified. We spent hours talking about everything from our childhood dreams to our favorite books. That date turned into a long walk through Central Park, where we watched street performers and shared our first kiss on Bow Bridge as the sun set behind us. Everything about our relationship felt right from the start. Jessica was passionate, ambitious, and kind. We shared the same values about family, work ethics, and what we wanted for our future. We both loved traveling, trying new restaurants, and spending quiet Sundays reading together. Within 6 months, we were saying "I love you" and introducing each other to our families. After 2 years together, we decided to take the next step and move in together. We found a beautiful apartment in the Upper East Side with hardwood floors, large windows, and a small balcony where Jessica planted herbs and flowers. The rent was steep, but we both had good jobs, and sharing expenses made it manageable. It felt like the natural progression of our relationship. "This place is perfect for us," Jessica had said, as we signed the lease. "I can already imagine our life here." Once we moved in together, we decided to open a joint bank account. It was Jessica's suggestion, actually. "It will make paying bills easier," she reasoned, "and we can start saving for our future together." I agreed without hesitation. We each contributed a significant portion of our salaries to the account, using it for rent, utilities, groceries, and our vacation fund. I trusted her completely with our shared finances. As we settled into domestic life, we often talked about our future. Jessica would mention wanting a house in the suburbs someday with a yard for kids to play in. We discussed wedding preferences casually, her preferring something small and intimate, perhaps on a beach. I started to think seriously about proposing. "I want to grow old with you," she told me one night as we lay in bed, her head on my chest. "I want to build a life where we take care of each other." I believed every word. After 3 years together, I was certain Jessica was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. I started researching engagement rings, saving up for something special that would make her eyes light up. I found the perfect ring at a small jewelry store, a vintage-style diamond set in white gold that reminded me of her elegant taste. I had it all planned out. I would propose at La Grenouille, the French restaurant where we had celebrated our 100-day anniversary. I made reservations for our upcoming 3-year anniversary, arranged for her favorite flowers to be at the table, and practiced my speech until I knew exactly what I wanted to say. I imagined her face, the tears in her eyes, the yes that would begin our forever. Jessica seemed equally invested in our future. She would send me links to houses for sale in neighborhoods we liked, even though we weren't ready to buy yet. She had created a shared document with ideas for vacations we wanted to take together. She had even started a Pinterest board for wedding inspiration, though she thought I didn't know about it. Every sign pointed to her wanting the same future I did. I never imagined that in just a few weeks, everything I believed about our relationship would crumble to dust. I have that conference in Boston next week. Jessica mentioned casually over dinner one evening. Remember I told you about it? The big marketing summit. I will be gone for a week. I remembered her mentioning it vaguely a month earlier. A whole week. That seems long for a conference. There are workshops after the main sessions, she explained, not meeting my eyes. It is a big opportunity to network and learn new strategies. The company is covering everything. I nodded, pushing away a tiny flicker of unease. Jessica had been acting slightly different lately, checking her phone more often, stepping out of the room to take calls, keeping conversations brief. But I chalked it up to work stress. She had mentioned her team was working on a major campaign. The night before her trip, I surprised her with a small going-away dinner, cooking her favorite pasta dish and opening a bottle of wine we had been saving. She seemed distracted, checking her phone throughout the meal, but smiled appreciatively at my efforts. "You are the best," she said, kissing me. "I am going to miss you." I helped her pack, watching as she carefully selected outfits that seemed more appropriate for dinners out than a business conference. Again, I dismissed my concerns. Perhaps networking events in her industry were more formal than in mine. "Call me when you get to the hotel," I said as I hugged her goodbye the next morning. "I want to hear all about the first day." She promised she would and kissed me deeply before getting into the taxi. I stood watching until it disappeared around the corner, trying to ignore the strange heaviness in my chest. The first few days of her trip, our communication was sparse. She sent brief texts saying she was in sessions all day and networking events in the evenings. When I called, she often didn't answer later, explaining she had been in areas with poor reception or had left her phone charging in the hotel room. I tried to be understanding. Conferences could be hectic, and she was probably trying to make the most of the professional opportunity. But something felt off. Then came the first real red flag. 3 days into her supposed conference, Jessica sent me a text clearly meant for someone else. "Meet you at the beach in 20 minutes. Wearing the blue bikini you like." My stomach dropped. Boston beaches in early spring. And who was she wearing a bikini for? When I questioned her about it, her response came almost too quickly. "Sorry, that was for Amanda. Some of the girls from the conference are going to a spa near the harbor for a quick break between sessions. They have an indoor pool area they call the beach." Silly corporate attempt at making it sound fun. It sounded plausible enough, but doubt had taken root. That evening, I suggested a video call, wanting to see her face as we talked. "Hey," she answered, her face filling my screen. The background behind her was dim, but it didn't look like a standard hotel room. "Where are you?" I asked casually. "In my hotel room, of course," she replied, quickly adjusting her camera so all I could see was her face against a blank wall. "The lighting is terrible in here." "How is the conference going?" I pressed. "Exhausting, but good. So many sessions to attend." She launched into a detailed description of panels and speakers' names and topics that sounded legitimate. I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. Then, as we were talking, my phone buzzed with a notification from our joint bank account. A charge from a store called Miami Beach Souvenirs. The amount wasn't large, but the location made my blood run cold. "I thought the conference was in Boston," I said slowly. Jessica didn't miss a beat. "It is. I ordered a gift online for my sister. Her birthday is coming up and she loves beach-themed stuff." After we hung up, I sat staring at the wall, doubt gnawing at me. I pulled up the hotel information she had sent me before leaving and called the front desk. "Hello. I am trying to reach a guest, Jessica Parker. Can you connect me to her room?" "I'm sorry, sir. We don't have anyone registered under that name." My hands were shaking as I hung up. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing through possibilities, explanations, scenarios. The next morning, I made a decision I never thought I would make in our relationship. I used the location sharing feature she had enabled on her phone during a trip last year and never turned off. According to her phone, Jessica wasn't in Boston. She was in Miami Beach, Florida. My mind was spinning as I stared at the location pin on my screen. Miami, not Boston. A resort called the Palms, according to the map. Without allowing myself to second guess, I booked the next available flight to Miami. I needed to see for myself what was happening. 4 hours later, I was on a plane, my thoughts oscillating between anger, disbelief, and a desperate hope that there was some explanation that wouldn't destroy everything we had built. During the flight, I tried to focus on the movie playing on the seat in front of me, but my mind kept creating scenarios, each more painful than the last. Maybe there had been a last-minute change of conference location. Maybe her company had sent her to a different event. Deep down, I knew I was grasping at straws. When I landed in Miami, the humid heat hit me like a wall as I exited the airport. I took a taxi directly to the Palms Resort, a luxury beachfront hotel with pristine white architecture and swaying palm trees. I checked into a room paying an exorbitant last-minute rate that made me wince, but I needed to be close to have a base for my investigation. From the hotel lobby, I could see the expansive pool area and beach beyond. I found a spot at the outdoor bar with a clear view of most of the resort grounds. The bartender was friendly, happy to keep my glass filled as I settled in for what might be a long wait. I kept checking the location app, confirming that Jessica's phone was indeed somewhere on these grounds. Visiting alone, the bartender asked as he refilled my water. Meeting someone, I replied vaguely. Just waiting for them to be free. 3 hours passed. I was beginning to think I had made a terrible mistake, wasting money and time on a wild suspicion. Then I saw her. Jessica walked out onto the pool deck, wearing a blue bikini and a sheer white cover-up. My heart seized in my chest. She looked beautiful, carefree, smiling widely. And she wasn't alone. A tall man with sandy blonde hair walked beside her, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. I recognized him instantly. Tyler, her ex-boyfriend from before we met. She had told me they dated for 2 years in college but drifted apart after graduation. According to Jessica, they had barely kept in touch. Yet here they were, clearly intimate, clearly comfortable with each other. I sank lower in my seat, adjusting my sunglasses and hat to avoid being recognized. They settled on lounge chairs near the pool, and I watched as Tyler applied sunscreen to Jessica's back, his hands lingering longer than necessary. They were laughing, sharing inside jokes, acting like a couple who had been together for years, not people who had barely kept in touch. I ordered lunch at the bar, picking at the food while keeping them in my sight. They swam together, splashing and playing in the water. At one point, Tyler lifted Jessica onto his shoulders, and she squealed with delight. I felt physically ill watching them, but I couldn't look away. In the afternoon, they moved to the beach. I followed at a safe distance, finding a spot where I could observe without being obvious. Jessica and Tyler walked along the shoreline, holding hands, stopping occasionally to embrace or share a kiss. Each display of affection was a knife to my heart. As the sun began to set, they found a relatively secluded spot on the beach. I moved closer, staying behind a large beach umbrella, desperate to hear what they were saying. Their voices carried on the evening breeze. "When are you going to tell him?" Tyler asked, drawing patterns on Jessica's arm with his finger. "After I get back," she replied. "I need to do it carefully. We live together. We have the joint account. It is complicated. It has been complicated for 6 months, Jess. I am tired of sneaking around." 6 months. They had been seeing each other behind my back for half a year. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I know. Jessica soothed, running her hand through Tyler's hair. "Just a little longer, I promise. What about the money? Have you been moving it like we discussed?" Jessica nodded. "A little at a time so he doesn't notice. I have already transferred about 20,000 to my personal account. After we get back, I will take another 15. That should be enough to cover the first few months in Chicago." They were planning to move to Chicago together. Using our joint savings money I had been putting aside for our future, for an engagement ring, for a down payment on a house. "What if he checks the account?" Tyler asked. "He never does," Jessica replied with a dismissive wave. "Freddie trusts me completely. He is so caught up in his perfect proposal plan that he doesn't see what is happening right in front of him. They laughed together at my expense, at my blind trust and love. I had heard enough. Quietly, I retreated my hands, shaking with rage and heartbreak. Back in my hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind reeling from what I had witnessed and heard. I pulled out my phone and accessed our joint bank account. Jessica had been right about one thing. I hadn't been checking it regularly. Now I scrolled through months of transactions, noting multiple withdrawals to an account I didn't recognize. Small amounts at first, growing larger over time. The most recent withdrawal had been 3 days ago, $5,000, nearly emptying my last paycheck contribution. Next, I checked Jessica's social media accounts. For someone supposedly at a professional conference, she had been suspiciously quiet online. But Tyler had been active. His Instagram showed carefully cropped photos of tropical drinks, ocean views, and sunsets, deliberately framed to exclude Jessica, but matching the exact location where I now Saturday. Using my phone, I took photos of them together on the beach. I recorded a short video of their conversation. I took screenshots of the bank transactions. I compiled everything into a folder labeled betrayal and sent a copy to my personal email as backup. Then I made a decision about what to do next. I flew back to New York that night, my mind clear, despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. I had considered confronting Jessica and Tyler directly on the beach, creating a scene that would have given me momentary satisfaction. But a deeper, colder part of me wanted justice more than drama. They had meticulously planned to deceive me and steal my money. My response would be equally calculated. My first stop back in New York was our bank. I arrived as soon as they opened, requesting an urgent meeting with a personal banker. The young woman listened sympathetically as I explained the situation, showing her photos and transaction records as evidence. "I need to freeze the joint account immediately," I said, "and I want to understand my options for recovering the funds that were improperly transferred. Since it is a joint account, both parties have legal access to the funds," she explained gently. "However, given the circumstances, we can certainly freeze the account to prevent further transactions while the matter is investigated. I would strongly recommend consulting with a lawyer regarding the transferred funds." We spent an hour completing paperwork to freeze the account and documenting the unauthorized transfers. I opened a new individual account, transferring my portion of the remaining funds. The banker also helped me identify all recurring payments and subscriptions linked to the joint account, so I could update payment information for those I was responsible for. "Thank you for your help," I said as we finished. "One more question. If someone tries to use a card linked to the frozen account for a hotel bill or travel expenses, what happens?" "The transaction would be declined," she replied. "They would need to provide an alternative payment method." I nodded, a grim satisfaction settling over me. Jessica and Tyler were staying at a 5-star resort, likely planning to charge everything to our joint account upon checkout. That would no longer be possible. Next, I went to our apartment. I knew I had at least 4 more days before Jessica was scheduled to return from Boston. I packed methodically, taking only what was undisputedly mine. Clothes, personal electronics, family heirlooms, and important documents went into suitcases and boxes. I took photos of everything I was leaving behind, creating an inventory for potential legal proceedings. In the back of our closet, I found the engagement ring I had hidden still in its blue velvet box. I held it for a moment, remembering the future I had imagined before tucking it into my pocket. At least I hadn't given it to her yet. I arranged for a storage unit and moving help, efficiently clearing out my belongings in under 2 days. I left the apartment key on the kitchen counter alongside a manila envelope containing printouts of all the evidence I had gathered, including photos of Jessica and Tyler together, bank statements showing the unauthorized transfers, and screenshots of their social media activity, contradicting their stories. On top of the envelope, I placed a handwritten letter. "Jessica, by now you have discovered that our joint account has been frozen. I know about Miami. I know about Tyler. I know about the money you have been transferring. and your plans for Chicago. Everything you need to understand how I found out is in this envelope. Do not contact me, except through my lawyer whose information is enclosed. Goodbye, Freddie. I had just finished setting up in a temporary sublet when the messages started. First texts, then voicemails, each more frantic than the last. Freddie, the card is not working. There must be some mistake with the bank. Please call me back. The hotel is saying we need to pay now, or they will call security. This isn't funny. We are stranded here. I need access to the account, okay? I know you know. Can we please talk about this? Tyler and I are stuck here with no way to pay for our flight home. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I contacted my closest friends and family, giving them a brief, factual account of what had happened. I knew Jessica would try to spin the story, portraying me as overreacting or unreasonable. I wanted those who mattered to me to hear the truth first. My friends were supportive beyond what I could have hoped for. My buddy Marcus offered his couch if I needed it. My sister Rachel called Jessica every name in the book and promised to help me find a good lawyer. Even Jessica's friend Tara reached out apologizing for keeping her secret and admitting she had felt conflicted about the affair for months. She told me they reconnected at a college reunion last fall, Tara confessed. I told her to come clean to you, but she said she needed time to figure things out. I never knew about the money, Freddie. That is just wrong. Meanwhile, according to mutual friends, Jessica and Tyler were scrambling. The resort had threatened to call the police when they couldn't pay their substantial bill. Eventually, Tyler had to call his parents, who wired money for the hotel and economy flights back to New York, a far cry from the first-class tickets they had planned to charge to our account. When Jessica finally returned to New York, she found her key still worked, but the apartment was half empty. She called and texted constantly for 2 days, alternating between tearful apologies, angry accusations, and desperate pleas to talk. It wasn't what it looked like, one message claimed, despite the photographic evidence suggesting otherwise. We can work through this, promised another. People make mistakes. You had no right to take all your things and freeze our money, she raged in a voicemail. We need to split everything fairly. I responded only once through my lawyer, who sent a formal letter detailing the evidence of financial impropriety and requesting the return of the funds Jessica had diverted to her personal account. The letter also made it clear that I would pursue legal action if necessary. 3 days later, the money was returned in full. Jessica moved out of the apartment the following week, breaking the lease and leaving me to deal with the landlord. Through my lawyer, we negotiated a settlement where she paid her share of the remaining lease term. The aftermath was messy, but manageable. Friends chose sides, with most supporting me once they learned the details. Jessica and Tyler did move to Chicago based on social media updates, though without the financial cushion they had planned. I heard through mutual connections that Tyler lost his job within 2 months of the move, and their relationship began to strain under financial pressure. As for me, I focused on rebuilding. I found a smaller but comfortable apartment in Brooklyn, immersed myself in work, and started therapy to process the betrayal and its impact on my ability to trust. The engagement ring was returned to the jeweler, who graciously offered a partial refund despite their usual no-return policy. It has been 8 months since that day in Miami when my world turned upside down. The initial pain was overwhelming. I would wake up reaching for Jessica, only to remember she was gone, and not in the way that simply meant an absence, but in a way that erased who I thought she was entirely. The person I loved had never really existed. Those first few weeks were the hardest. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office, taking on extra projects, anything to keep my mind occupied. At night, sleep eluded me, and I would replay every moment of our relationship, looking for signs I might have missed, red flags I had ignored. My therapist, Dr. Lawson, helped me understand that Jessica's betrayal wasn't my failure. Trust isn't foolish, she told me during one session. Your capacity to trust is a strength, not a weakness. What happened reflects her character, not yours. Slowly, I established new routines. My new apartment became a space truly my own, decorated in ways Jessica would have never approved. I reconnected with old friends I had unintentionally neglected during my relationship. I started running in Prospect Park every morning, finding that physical exertion helped clear my mind and settle my emotions. One of the most important lessons I learned was about financial entanglement. I vowed never again to combine finances with someone until marriage, and even then, to maintain transparency and separate accounts alongside any joint resources. The vulnerability of shared money without shared commitment was a risk I would not take twice. Never let access to your money outpace access to your heart, my father advised, when I finally told him the whole story. It was wisdom I would carry forward. 3 months after the breakup, I took a solo trip to Japan, something Jessica had always refused to consider because she preferred beach destinations. In Kyoto, sitting in a peaceful garden surrounded by autumn maples, I felt the first real sense of peace since everything had fallen apart. I realized I was healing, finding my way back to myself. Upon returning to New York, I joined a community volunteer group that built homes for families in need. During one Saturday build, I met Amy, an architect who was donating her professional skills to the organization. We struck up a conversation over lunch, talking about design principles and the joy of creating spaces for people to live and grow. Amy was different from Jessica in every way, thoughtful and genuine, with an infectious laugh and a passion for her work that inspired me. We exchanged numbers as friends, first meeting for coffee to discuss books and films. I was cautious, guarded, still raw from betrayal. Amy never pushed, respecting my pace, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, my walls began to come down. 6 months after discovering Jessica's betrayal, Amy and I went on our first official date. I was nervous, explaining my recent past and my lingering trust issues. "We all have scars," she said simply. "They are proof we have lived through something and survived. I am not in a rush, Freddie. Good things are worth waiting for. I am still taking things slowly, still working through the aftermath of betrayal. But I am also moving forward, one careful step at a time. I am learning that while trust once broken is hard to rebuild, it is not impossible. I am finding that betrayal, as painful as it is, can also be clarifying, showing us what we truly value and need in relationships. The money Jessica tried to take has been recovered, the legal matters settled. I occasionally hear updates about her and Tyler through mutual friends, though I have removed both from all my social media. Their relationship apparently didn't survive the challenges of reality once the thrill of deception was gone. I find I no longer care about the details of their lives. What I do care about is the person I am becoming through this experience. Stronger, yes, but also more compassionate, more aware of both my resilience and my vulnerability. I value honesty more than ever, both from others and from myself. I no longer ignore intuition when something feels wrong. Sometimes, the most painful endings can lead to the most profound beginnings. The collapse of what I thought was my future forced me to build something new, something more authentic and aligned with who I truly am. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led you to something better? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and renewal. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the hardest chapters of our lives become the most important parts of our story.